Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Pro Show with Colin and Jacob. As always, I'm Colin.
And I'm Jacob.
And we're the pros. All right.
We're also here to talk about the most pro color, too.
Yes. When it comes time to talk about Magic the Gathering, there is truly one color that stands out among all the others. This color is known for its controlling nature, for the intellect of those who play it, and for the vast superiority you feel when you drop an island onto the battlefield turn 1. We are, of course, talking about blue. And we're being very serious. Anyway, we're looking at the blue cards for Battle for Zendikar. We're going to have a limited focus. We might talk about some standard applications, probably not. This is for people who want to go to their local game stores and
destroy their pre-release.
Yeah, you're going to win your pre-release if you listen to this.
Guaranteed.
Guaranteed.
All your money back if you lose.
And if you do not win and you are upset with us, please write us an email at proshow.netflix.biz at gmail.com. All right. We've probably alienated everyone by now. They've already closed this.
I think we need to actually register an email now.
Yeah. We can do that after this. All right. Without further ado, we are going to be going through blue. If you just came here from our white set review, we did it by rarity, commons, uncommons, rares, mythic rares. However, we are taking a different approach to blue and also the other colors of this set. The nature of Devoid makes a lot of websites organize their cards a little bit harder. So for this one, we will be just playing through cards, and we will mention what rarity they are as we talk about them.
We're doing alphabetical this time, so we're going to start with the A and in this case with the W, but some cases might be Z.
Yeah, and some cases it might be Y, or even something that isn't W. All right, let's actually get into content here. So we're starting with adverse conditions. This is 3 and a blue. It's an uncommon instant. It's devoid, meaning that it's actually, technically, a colorless card, even though you're using a blue source to play.
The first devoid card you actually talked about today.
Yes. This card, when you play it, you tap up to 2 target creatures. The creatures don't untap during their controller's next untap step. And you put a 1/1 colorless Eldrazi Scion creature token onto the battlefield. It has sacrifice this creature, add a colorless mana to your mana pool. Now, I read that for this card. There's a lot of cards that make Eldrazi Scions that we're going to get into. I am just going to call them Eldrazi Scions from now on. You need to know that they're 1/1 tokens that you can sacrifice to add a colorless to your mana pool.
Yeah. And they're a very, very strong token. They're going to be a focus of a lot of the strategies we're about to talk about. There's no Eldrazi in white, which is why we haven't talked about them yet. But for these next colors, it's going to be a big focus.
Yeah. This card, adverse conditions, 4 to tap 2 things for 1+ turns. It's a nice combat effect. It's a nice control effect. It's not removal, certainly, but I think you'll want this card if you... Well, all right. How can you use this card?
Oh, so this card is at its best when you have cheap creatures that just need to get some extra damage in. Remember Will of the Naga from Fate Reforged?
Yes.
It's basically the same. Basically, gonna be the same application. There's no Frostwalker in this set. There's no blue card that is very powerful early on that you just want to push through as much damage as possible. I don't really see this having very much synergy with the blue cards that are going to be coming up. This isn't what I'd really call a control card, because control wants more permanent answers. If they're playing the very long game, they're not playing the 2-turn game. This is a tempo card, and I don't think that blue supports tempo in a set.
You could perhaps splash this card. It costs 4, so by the time you're playing it, you should be able to rustle up a blue source. Putting a token on the battlefield is never bad, and something to think about. We will talk about this mechanic in a moment, but ingest, the mechanic of ingest, this will help you get creatures in to trigger that, which might end up being a lot more significant than we even know.
Yeah.
So
there's some very powerful processor cards that rely on ingest cards. I guess they would be worth playing a card like this to get a few damage in and some exiled cards.
Yeah. I wouldn't say this is close to being first pickable. This is a card you can put in your deck. It's playable. You don't want multiple copies, really. This is just this is such an average card. You'll probably after 6th pick.
This is something you'll see in the last half of the pack.
Yeah,
very consistently. You take this if it synergizes with what you already have. It's not going to push you into one archetype or another.
Yeah, and seeing it also probably won't give you that much information about what colors are.
This is not a signal.
Okay. Next card, Anticipate. Oh, I got a reprint. It's colorless and a blue for an instant. Look at the top 3 cards of your library, put one of them in your hand, and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. Speaking of control, this card is sweet.
And it has some pretty sweet art, too.
Yeah, it's like kind of like a blue mage standing in front of a waterfall.
I can't really tell what the blue mage is wearing, but it just looks pretty cool.
Yeah, there's some like droplets. This kind of thing translates really well on a podcast. Yeah. This card, you look at the top 3 cards, you pick one, and you get to move the other ones aside. I like it.
Yes. This doesn't cost very much mana. It's an instant speed. It filters to your library. You can anticipate for lands if you're missing those.
Yeah, turn 2.
This is
it.
A card that I want as many of as I possibly can in a slower blue deck.
Yeah, this is a great card. Pick it highly. Don't first pick it because you need bombs and removal, but this will help you find those bombs and removal pretty consistently.
Something to keep in mind is that if you're not anticipating with the eventual end goal of finding a big finisher, then you're kind of just doing nothing.
Yeah.
If you're going to make the game go long, you got to have something to actually win at the end.
Yeah.
Make sure you get one of those at some point in the draft.
Yeah. Control decks, it's a lot of removal, it's a lot of card filtering, and then there's actually relatively few big finishers. And the idea is that you just dig through your deck, dig through time. You dig through your deck until you find them, and Anticipate is a card that's going to help you do that. And, this card is going to see standard play. So
yeah, and it has from its Printing and Dragons Start here.
Yeah.
It's going to continue to see more.
Yeah, even when Dragons rotates out. And all right, that is Anticipate. Moving on, we have Benthic Infiltrator. Oh, our first Eldrazi. It is 2 colorless and a blue for a 1/4. It's a common. Oh, did we mention Anticipate's a common?
Yes.
So is this card, Benthic Infiltrator. 3 for a 1/4. Devoid. It's an Eldrazi drone. Devoid means colorless. It has Ingest. This is a new mechanic. Whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, that player exiles the top card of his or her library. This isn't a mill effect, really, because you'll kill someone before you can mill them using Ingest. What it does do is allow you to start processing things, which we'll get to later. Something Benthic Infiltrator can do is it has the ability that it can't be blocked, making it a guaranteed ingester, which is pretty significant.
Yeah. So the way these ingest decks look like they work is that you really want some exile effects going early, so that your bombs processors, they have their maximum effects whenever you want them.
Yeah, and a lot of processors come out turn 4 or 5. They're costed around there.
Yes, and Benthic Infiltrator is probably the best way to start exiling cards reliably. This is not going to fall to very much early removal. If your opponent targets this with removal, you're going to be very happy because it's not a very threatening card that's on its own. And it just starts exiling cards. You have to have some kind of board state where you can afford to attack with your turn 3 play. That's the condition. Otherwise, once you don't need to exile cards anymore, it's going to be an okay blocker. This is something I want in every single one of my blue ingest decks.
Yes. If you have them in sealed, put them in your deck. If you see it in draft, pick it pretty highly.
Yes, this is going to be one of the first commons taken out of every pack.
This is a card you can rely on, and reliable cards are so nice for draft. Yeah, I love this card. I'm going to be playing it. You're going to be playing it. And you, dear listener, should also be playing it. Moving on. Brilliant Spectrum. It's 3 colorless and a blue. It is a common sorcery with Converge. Draw X cards, where X is the number of colors of mana spent to cast it, and then discard 2 cards. So, at best, you're tapping 4 different sources of mana, or you're using 4 different sources of mana to make a draw 4, discard 2 at sorcery speed, which is fine. This card is fine. If you are in a slow, control-y type deck that's playing Anticipates, you'll probably want this card. You won't want more than 1 of it. Yeah.
So something to keep in mind when we're going through these converge cards is that there's no color fixing at common. There's no dual lands at common. There's some creatures and some instants that we're going to get to later, but there's no dual lands at common. So it's actually going to be fairly difficult to get up to four colors reliably.
Yeah.
So what you have to consider when looking at this card is, at what point, what does X need to be before I'm happy playing this? So at X's 4, it's a great card. Draw 4, discard 2 is an amazing effect, because when you draw 4 cards, you already have some in your hand. Discarding 2, you're probably going to have some weak cards to discard.
Mm-hmm.
Drawing 3 and discarding 2, you're starting to get to some. Yeah. So I'm not very happy about this. I think it's still playable. It's sorcery, which really is not good, but it's playable. And then you get to if X is ever 2, and that's just not a good card.
You might have to play it for X's 2 at some point.
Yeah.
You won't be happy, but you'll still do it because you need cards, and it'll get you there. And if X is 1, then I feel sorry for you, and you may have a tissue to cry into.
You are filling your graveyard up for something.
Yes, this is for the dredge decks that are. It's not a standard, or not a limited archetype, but you know what? You can make it that way. I believe in you. You've
heard it here first. This is a staple for dredge decks in Modern.
Yes. Yeah. Sure. Moving on. Cloud Manta. 3 colorless and a blue for a 3/2 flying fish. And it is a common. This card is boring.
It's boring, but it's very good.
Yeah.
3 power in the air for 4 mana is a very reasonable cost.
Yeah.
I think this goes in almost any blue deck you're playing.
Yeah.
No matter what type of blue deck you're playing. It's just a good creature.
Yeah. I mean, flying blue always gets the nice flying creatures. This is no exception. Play it, enjoy it.
Yes.
Don't first pick it, but if it's the 3rd blue card you're picking up in a pack, you're happy to see it.
Yeah. This is a card that's probably going to go in the top, 3rd of a pack.
Yeah. It's nice. Mm-hmm. It's nice. All right, moving on. We've got Clutch of Currents. It is a 1 blue mana sorcery. It's common. Return target creature to its owner's hand. That's already fine. However, it's got Awaken 3 for 4 colorless and a blue. So for 5 mana, you get to bounce something and put a 3/3, or turn one of your lands into a 3/3.
So I don't think this is worth a card at its normal cost. So the reason that the disperse effects or bounce spells are good, right, that you want one of them in your limited deck, is because they're instant speed. You can respond to an opponent using a pump spell or an enchantment.
Mm-hmm.
Get some value like that. At sorcery speed, it just doesn't have. It just card disadvantage.
Yeah, it's for clearing the way for an attack, and that attack better be damn good if you're spending a card for it.
But this is not just a normal 1 mana bounce spell. It's an awaken spell, and
it's like a really sexy Separatist Void Mage. You're
yes.
paying 5 for a 3/3 that bounces something, and that is fine.
I really like that. So this is a common, and this is not going to be a high pick for anybody who's not in Awaken. So something you need to consider is having eventually too many Awaken cards, and that might be first world problems. But it can happen where you have maybe 2 of these in your hand, and it's like, well, these are not good cards for 1 mana, so I guess I have to say these are now 5 drops.
Yeah, they can be dead cards for a while.
I will gladly play one of these in my blue deck.
Mm-hmm.
I probably would not play any more than that.
Yeah, it's a nice card for what it does. Again, multiples is bad because this is essentially a 5-drop. You are going to be hard-pressed to find a situation where you play it for 1. Maybe if it's turn 3 and they have enough Eldrazi Scion tokens on the board for some insane reason, and they sack them all and ramp up to something big, and you unsummon it, and they can't reach that level of ramp again, that's the one time you'd probably play this for its non-awaken cost. But for the most part, this is a 5-drop. Treat it that way.
Or if you're, I guess you can have that one game where your opponent plays enchantment on my creature, go. And you say, okay, fine. But it's not something to plan for.
That won't happen unless you are... Well, I don't want to be mean to anyone. That probably won't happen. Okay, Coastal Discovery. 3 colorless and a blue. This is an uncommon sorcery, and holy shit. This draws you 2 cards. Already, I'm happy. 4 for drawing 2. Fine.
Sorcery Spree is okay.
Awaken 4, however, for 6. Suddenly, for 6 mana in blue, you are playing a 4/4 creature, and you draw 2 cards. And that, my friends, is very nice.
Yeah. I didn't know Muldrifter would be reprinted in the set.
Yeah, this is Muldrifter, guys. It doesn't have flying. It doesn't have Evoke. It's not an elemental. It is an elemental. It is an elemental.
I don't think there's elemental synergies in the set, but...
Yeah, whatever. This card is good. If you've ever heard of Muldrifter, you know that it's good. I would first pick this in some situations.
I have to get a better idea what packs would typically look like, but yes, I think this is a card you pick in top 3.
Yeah, this is a nice card. It is sweet. There aren't any... even if you're not playing the Awakened deck, you'll want this if you're in blue.
6 mana, make a 4/4, draw 2 cards.
Yeah, that's. I mean, just saying it out loud just sounds wrong.
Yeah, and even if that 4/4 has come to play tapped, if you craft the board state to have it that way, that's you can pull that off. If you have to wait till you have a 7th land to leave untapped, card's so great.
Yeah, 4/4 with haste is. I'm befuddled. I'm at a loss for words. This card is nice. Pick it. Moving on. Coral Helm Guide. It's colorless and a blue for a 2/1 Merfolk Scout Ally. And it's got an ability for colorless and blue. Target creature can't be blocked this turn. Alright, this looks like it's going to be a set in every color of an ally that's low cost, normal body for its size, for its cost, and then it's got a 5 mana, kind of mediocre mana sink ability.
5 mana for can't be blocked is an okay rate. Rogue's Passive is a very good card, and Origins Limited. This is a 2/1, and 2/1s, you're not going to be able to attack with this card ever. You just don't plan on attacking with this card because there's Eldrazi Scions, and they can block it, and that's a terrible trade for you. Yeah, it
triggers Rally. Oh, this is a common card, by the way.
It triggers Rally. I don't think you're going to have very many allies if you're playing blue. I guess this is just a slightly below replacement level card. Yeah, you're going to play this if you're hurting playables, but otherwise, it's just not exciting.
Mediocre. Yeah, moving on. Cryptic Cruiser. 3 colorless, 1 blue for a 3/3. This is a creature. It's an Eldrazi processor. It's uncommon. This is our first processor. Very exciting. It's devoid, meaning it's a colorless card for all rule purposes. And it has the ability tap 2 blue, 2 colorless, and a blue. 3 total. Don't have to tap it. This is just a mana ability. 3 mana. Put a card an opponent owns from exile into that player's graveyard. Tap target creature.
So this is the first card we've seen that interacts with your opponent's exile. And so when we're looking at cards like Benthic Infiltrator, this is what Benthic Infiltrator is setting up. Cards like this. And this is one of my least favorite processors in the set. This is not a good one to demonstrate how powerful this effect can be. Tap target creature is more of a tempo play. I don't think blue really supports the tempo play in this set. The 3/3 for 4 is sub replacement level. You don't have to tap the card, but there's also going to be a very limited amount of cards your opponent owns in exile that you can put back in your graveyard.
Yeah.
That you want to be using for more powerful effects.
Benthic Infiltrator. I mean, you get a couple of those out. And that's a very ideal situation. Benthic Infiltrator is a common, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So there are ways of getting enough cards. I think this card might end up surprising you. I think tapping things down tapping multiple things down, possibly if you get to 6 mana, is actually does give you a lot more control over the board state than you'd think. I mean, you can prevent things from attacking, you can prevent things from blocking, you can prevent things from using their tap down abilities if they don't have mana for them. This won't win you the game necessarily, but it sure gives your opponent a headache when you play it.
Yeah, your opponent's not going to be able to make a lot of profitable attacks after you play this, and that's going to be good for you. I would play this if I didn't have a lot of other processors in the deck.
Yeah.
Because this is competing with processors who have more effective abilities. But if you just don't see the right processors, this is a fine payoff.
Yeah. It's a fine card. You can pick it, don't pick it highly. This will probably go around the middle of the pack, generally speaking. It might also never get picked. Seeing this card at the end of a pack is a really good indication that
that's a signal. Yeah.
That processing is open, and you might want to move in if you see that signal. Moving on. Dampening Pulse. 3 colorless and a blue. It is an enchantment. It is uncommon, and it has the rules text that creatures your opponents control get -1, -0.
This would have been my favorite card in the world if this was in Magic Origins.
Yeah, this card, it's even the art represents, it just turns Eldrazi Scions into Eldrazi Spawn.
This is...
Also, their other creatures get -1, -0. It's not powerful. It's not that powerful of an effect at 4 mana. When
your opponent's just trying, a lot of people are going to be playing are going to be trying to go over the top. This is a powerful card against the ally deck. We're going to try and go wide, but if turning their 8/8 into a 7/8, you still lose the game.
Yeah, it's just less valuable.
I would play this as a sideboard card and put it in against, and possibly put it in against allies.
Yeah. This isn't going to win you a game. It might not. I can't think of a situation in which you play it and suddenly you're in a huge advantage over your opponent. It's just not that kind of card. But you can pick it. Sideboard is a perfect place for a card like that. But you'll want playables over it in pretty much every case. All right, moving on. Say that every time. Moving on. We've got Dispel. It is a 1 blue mana instant at common, and it counters target instant spells. It is the counter. This is a fun card. Counter spells are so fun to play. They don't need to be reined in at all. And
so I think that they've already been reined in, and that they won't be reined in anymore. But continue.
Oh, we're funny. This is not a card you're going to play in Limited. There's not enough instants to really mess with you. I mean, maybe a one of.
This is a sideboard card, strictly. If you come up with an opponent who has maybe a lot of combat tricks, or who has some powerful rare instants that you don't really want to go up against.
If they're playing white, you might want to play this card. But again, there's not even, unless they're removing something of yours, there's not a lot of cards that it's even necessarily worth counter. Like, things can resolve and you'll still be okay.
If you see some bomb rares from your opponent in their instant, I can't think of one on the top of my head, or you can really mess with your opponent's combat math if you counter their whatever the Warflare effect was from white.
Yeah.
It messes with combat tricks.
Inspired charge. Sideboard it. I mean, if you ever ran negate, this is just a more narrow negate for 1 less mana. It's okay.
Your opponent will never expect it, though.
Yeah, that's true. That is true, and you probably won't expect it either when you're playing it.
It's like, I guess I have it as spell in my hand. How did that get there? Oh, well, I'll play it.
It's fine. Don't pick it first.
Right. What do we have next, Colin?
Coming up next is the Drowner of Hope. Boy, that is quite the name. Drowner of Hope. 5 colorless, 1 blue. This is a 5/5 devoid Eldrazi, and I should mention, this is a rare. So you're not going to be seeing a lot of these, but you'll see them. This has the enter the battlefield effect that you put 2 Scions into play, and it has the additional ability of you may sacrifice an Eldrazi Scion to tap target creature. This is 6 mana for putting 7 power and toughness on the board, which is already just peachy keen in blue. Sacrificing Scions to tap target creature It's okay. I mean, we talked about the processor. We talked about, Cryptic Cruiser. That's a stupid name. Sorry, R&D. It's not that stupid. I didn't mean to hurt any feelings.
We love you all.
Anyway, Driver of Hope, tap target creature. As we talked about earlier, it's a decent effect. It can really throw off the board and swing it in your favor. This is first pickable, I think.
Yeah, so even without this additional ability of tapping target creatures, like you said before, this is paying 6 mana for putting 7 power and 7 toughness on the board. And by the way, you have 2 of those Eldrazi Scions. They had upside already, and now they have even more upside. And all your Eldrazi Scions have more upside if you happen to have more of them.
Yeah.
This is easily a first pickable card. This is a good... It's not really a finisher for blue, because this dies to removal. But it's just so efficiently costed, and has powerful effects.
Yeah, turn 6 play, you'll be really happy with this. If this is the top of your curve, it's fine. If this is in the middle of your curve because you're going to try and ramp up to something really big, also fine.
This also ramps you to an 8 mana spell.
So please enjoy this card. Pick it first. Don't give it to your opponents. It's also really splashable. Only 1 blue in that cost. Mm-hmm. So go ahead and knock yourself out with this one. Oh boy. Moving on. We've got Eldrazi Sky Spawner. This is 2 colorless and a blue for a 2/1. Common Eldrazi drone. This card is devoid. It has flying. And when it comes into battlefield, you put a Scion into play.
This is amazing.
This is like almost first pickable.
Yeah, this is... Oh, if anybody remembers Sandstep Outcast from Fate Forge or Gearcrafter from Magic Origins, this is that card, but just strictly better.
Yeah, it's got flying, so you can start hitting them in the face for 2. And you're putting a Scion on the battlefield. You're giving yourself a ramp. You're giving yourself extra creatures that can go wide and attack. There's so much good stuff. And this is at common. This is going to be in every blue deck. You're going to be sick of seeing this in the next 2 months when we're waiting for Oath of the Gatewatch or whatever the heck it's called. This is a really cool card. And the art's pretty friggin' creepy, too. It's like...
Yeah, it has like a sack or something.
Yeah, it's got like a kind of... It looks like bat wings.
Yeah, those are
like,
strange wings.
Membrane.
Its arms are outside of its wings.
Yeah. The Eldrazi art, I really like the art in this set. Eldrazi are really cool. It's kind of hard to tell them apart because they're all purple monsters with tentacles and bones, but yeah, they're cool.
This is a first pickable card. This is more powerful than Gearcrafter and Sandstep Outcast, and those are both first pickable cards. If you see a power uncommon or a power rare, those are probably gonna be better. But don't expect to see these in the outside the first 3 or 4 cards of the deck.
And if you do, congratulations, you are the blue player.
Yes, you are now in blue.
Yeah, I'm going to say it. Up next, we have Exert Influence. This is 4 colorless and a blue. This is a rare sorcery with Converge. Gain control of target creature if its power is less than or equal to the number of colors of mana spent to cast Exert Influence. This is a neat little card.
This is permanent, which makes it a lot different than Active Treason.
Yes, very true. A lot of gain control of target creature cards. If they're sorceries, it's only until end of turn, and if they're enchantments, they're dependent on the enchantment staying in the battlefield. Creatures too, they're dependent on the creature staying there, like Willbreaker. This card, you permanently control something. Yes, it caps out at things with 5 power or less if you get all 5 sources of mana, which is very unlikely in Limited. In Limited, this is going to be a 3 or 4 power creature stealing. Or less. 2 or 1's fine. Good card. Pick it.
So, I think if you're going for the Converge deck, you're probably, on average, going to play this for 3 or 4.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't see this as a powerful effect at 3. And what are you really stealing here that you want? That's less than 3 power.
For 5 mana.
For 5 mana. Yeah, you can steal their Eldrazi Sky Spawner. And now you have a 2-power flyer. You have to steal something. You basically have to steal something flying in order to make a significant board state change. when you're already at 5. I don't really see this. I don't see this as playable. I think that if you go up to 5, then maybe you can find something. There's some cards coming up that you can seal for 4 or 5. But it's very conditional. It requires you to have both all your colors, and for your opponent to have a powerful card
that you would want.
Steal.
Yeah. Yeah, and then cards like these, they get blown out by that coastal or whatever. Unsummoned cards, they bounce them to the hand, and suddenly it's back in their control. They kill it, it's in their graveyard. I think, when I see gold in the set icon, I tend to gravitate towards those cards.
I think that's what everybody does.
Because I have a tiny little insect brain. But, yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe this card just doesn't do enough work consistently. And again, we talked about this earlier. In drafts, you want reliability and you want consistency. If you're playing an Eldrazi Sky Spawner, every time you play it, it feels good. You're getting the maximum value out of it. This card, the stars have to line up for you to be able to get maximum value. The medium value, I think it's still playable. Don't think that this card is unpickable. It'll probably go in the first half of a pack just because people like rares.
Yeah.
Gain control of target creature can be a pretty nice effect.
So, gain control of target of... So, yeah. Removable spell for their 2/2, and you put a 2/2 on the battlefield. It's actually probably stronger than I give it credit for. This is a set where your opponents are going to do some pretty powerful things on turn 5, 6, 7. So by that time, 2/2s are probably arguably blank. This can do work in the right scenario.
Yeah, and another thing is it caps at 5 power, and there are going to be some really big creatures we'll get to when we finally hit those Eldrazi, the big ones, the big ones.
Speaking of a card you'd really want to seal with Exert Influence.
Yes.
What do we have next here?
Next, we have Guardian of Tazim. This is 3 colorless and 2 blue. It is a 4/5 Sphinx. It is rare. It has flying, and it has landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield, tap target creature an opponent controls. Whenever that land is an island, that creature doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step. This is cool. Every island you play turns into removal, essentially.
Tempo play, yeah. So it's a 4/5 flying for 5, and it's already a great cost.
That is, you'll win with this card.
And now your lands are also spells. Cool.
Yeah.
I'm sold. I'm going to first pick this.
Yes. This is an absolute monster in Limited. I doubt it'll see any play in Standard. It just doesn't have the right versatility. But for Limited, this is easily a first pickable card.
Mm-hmm.
It'll win you games. It's never a bad draw. You'll always want to play it. Consistent, good.
Yes.
Next. Halimar Tidecaller. 2 colorless and a blue. This is an uncommon creature. It's a 2/3. It's a human wizard ally. When Halimar Tidecaller enters the battlefield, you may return target card with Awaken from your graveyard to your hand. Land creatures you control have flying. Holy crap.
I love this card.
This card is bananas. It's uncommon. This card should be rare. The only reason it isn't is because I believe Wizards likes to design sets with Limited in mind, and they want this card to be available to Limited players when they're making their decks, because Awaken's nice, but it might need something like get your card with Awaken back to your hand, which is a great effect. Especially on a 2/3 body for 3, and especially when all of your land creatures, which are usually 3/3s or 4/4s, now have flying.
So,
bananas.
Yeah. So
bonkers.
So when we see a lot of these Awaken cards, we're going to see these are actually overcosted or not particularly good if we cast them for their non-Awaken cost.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can cast a Clutch Occurrence, make it return a creature to its owner's hand, and then follow that up with a Halimar Tidecaller, get that back. That's an insanely good card. That's a 2/3 bounce target creature. This card, it lets you play your Awaken cards
unawakened, and those are generally, I think they're on cost. At the awakened cost is more, but some sets have done it where if a card has advantage, like Arcane's instance from Kamigawa, I think we saw them recently in Modern Masters 2015. Those cards are all costed extra because they have extra effects. Awakened cards are actually very fair. This card lets you play those for their fair cost, and then bring them back once you have more board state, more lands to work with, and then you get to play it for your awakened cost.
And then, by the way, all your lands are now finishers.
But yeah, by the way, you're getting in for friggin' 7 damage a turn. Goodbye. This card's great. It'll see standard play, I predict. This is the card. It's so many upsides. It's again, the only reason this isn't at rare is because limited needs cards like this to be reliably indexed. So this card, this card, great. Halimar Tide color, make it your.
So how many awakened cards do you need before you put out Halimar Tide color in your deck?
That's a little tricky because unlike ally cards, where when you trigger it twice, it's fine. If you only have 3 or 4 awakened cards in your deck, this might never see one based on a draw. So I'm going to say 5 and up. I think it's around 5 awakened cards that starts to get pretty nice. Because, again, even if you're returning 1 awakened card to your hand, it's already doing a huge amount of work.
So I think if you see... so the cheap awakened cards are what this really wants. This wants the Clutch of Currents. This doesn't want the 5 mana Wrath because you're probably not going to be able to recur that. I think that if you have maybe 3 cheap ones that you can reliably recur, that's enough to play this. You don't have to get the maximum value out of the cards you play first in order to recur them because it's still just a free card.
Yeah, all Coastal Discovery with this. Jeez,
it's pretty insane.
Jesus. Pick this card. This
is the first pick for me.
The thing that's tricky, I was going to say, it's so powerful in the right archetype that it might be worth first picking, but it also paradoxically needs that archetype around it to be... Actually, it's still a 3 for a 2/3. Even if it does nothing else for you, it is a on-curve creature.
It's an on-curve defender, basically.
It'll stop bears.
I will first pick this. I'm not going to be happy about playing it if I don't end up in Awaken. I probably will end up in Awaken if I first pick this.
Yeah.
Just going to say that.
Again, we talk a lot about signals. Seeing that card is a big signal. And signals, knowing signals and reading signals is a step, it's what a lot of pros like Jacob and I here use to win draft or drafts, plural. So it's just something to keep in mind. When you see a card, what does it mean that you saw it? All right.
Next card.
Next card, up next, coming up now, is Horribly Awry. Kind of a weird name for a Magic card, Horribly Awry. It is a 1 colorless, 1 blue instant, uncommon. It's a devoid spell, meaning it is colorless. You counter target creature spell with converted mana cost 4 or less. If it's countered, you exile it instead of graveyard. Great. Good card. Pick it. If you're in blue control and limited, this will still do work because there's plenty under 4 converted mana cost, especially if you're leaving up 2 mana.
Yeah. So this is exile fuel for your processors that we're going to see more of later. This is going to have a target if you just play island, go, and your opponent's going to play a creature and you're going to counter it. That's inevitable.
Yeah.
This is not a good top deck. If this is not the top, 10 or 11 cards in your library, this is probably just a blank draw. And that's what scares me about this card. Is that if I draw it turn 5 or 6, this might not just have a target. But I will probably play one in all blue decks I can have because it's just synergy, it's tempo, it's exactly what you want.
Yeah. It's a later pick than maybe your first couple picks in blue, but I think this card has enough upside. It's a 2-drop. You'll want it in your hand in any opening hand, on the play, on the draw. This is a fine card. I'd say go for it. One copy's good. 2 copies is you're starting to really push your luck. You don't want 2 counter spells in a limited deck. Well, I shouldn't say that. It's probably
conditional counter spells.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It's fine. It's a fine card. It's a 2-mana counter spell.
I have to say, I love the art though.
Yeah, he's. I think it's a guy. He's breathing out dust. His face is like crumbling.
His inside just like being turned to dust. He's leaking them. His eyes are bloodshot. And he's has this very horrified look on his face. Like it's exactly.
It's how you feel when you get a spell counter.
And the name is just horribly wry. It's just like this very innocuously. Oh, something bad happened.
Yeah. The thing that went awry was his insides turned to dust. Oops. Okay. Moving on.
I hate when that happens.
Incubator Drone. 3 colorless and a blue for a 2/3. This is a Eldrazi drone. It's common. It's got Devoid. When you play it, you also put an Eldrazi Scion into play. Great. This is your Kozilek's Predator. I don't know. I guess it's a Nest Invader.
Oh yeah, let's see. Never mind.
We'll get to green.
Yeah.
This is blue. There's a 2/3, which is kind of secretly a 3/4.
So this puts 3 power, 4 toughness on a board with a little bit of upside. Costs 4.
Yeah.
This is a solid card.
Yeah, it's not something you'd pick over something with true power, but you're also not going to pass this up if you're in blue. I feel like, Scions we talked about, they're going to be pretty important in this draft format. They're 1/1 creatures. They can be sacrificed for mana. They're very versatile. Things can give them extra effects, like Drowner of Hope. You sacrifice them to tap things. There are a lot of reasons why you're going to want Eldrazi Scions. This gives you one. Who fucking Ray?
Yeah.
Okay.
Next up,
Mist Intruder. Colorless and a blue. It is a 1/2 Eldrazi drone. It's a common. It's got flying and it's got ingest. This is an ingest enabler at 2 mana, which pushes it above Benthic Infiltrator in terms of cost. You get more cards exiled by the time you're ready to start processing things. However, flying as evasion isn't as foolproof as simply can't be blocked.
Yeah. So this is a solid card to play on turn 2. It's gonna, you're gonna play it with the expectation that it's gonna get blanked, a few turns later. But this is gonna get in for, exile a few cards in the meantime.
Yeah.
Like I said when we were talking during the white cards, there's just not very much that can block this early in the game.
Yeah, most of the flyers you're gonna want to play are all 4 or 5 mana and up.
So the problem, this card does run into problems where you don't play on turn 2, you're basically wasting a card.
Mm-hmm.
Once it gets blocked, once your opponent plays a flyer, then you're just down a card.
Yeah.
But I know I've been saying this long. We're going to get to the good processors. The processors is so powerful that playing a card that's not very good just to enable them, I think, is worth it.
Yeah, and it's important to know that this card totally bricks Kite Sail Scouts.
Oh man, you're going to see so many of those Kite Sail Scouts.
Yeah, they play one turn 1, and you're on the play. You get to play this turn 2. Suddenly, you're keeping your life total at 20 and not going down to 19. And I can't think of any better play than
Actually,
that.
I can't think of a better play than letting my life total go down to 2019 on turn 2, because it means my opponent has done something horrible.
This card also trades evenly, except for the Scion, with Eldrazi Sky Spawner. I think we're going to see Sky Spawners and Intruders trading quite a bit. Merc Strider is our next card. It is a 3 colorless, 1 blue. It's a 3/2, and oh baby, this is a processor at common.
Yes. So finally, this is one of my favorite processors. This is at common, and it has a really powerful effect. What's that effect, Colin?
Well, that effect, Jacob, is when it enters the battlefield, you can process a card, which is putting it from exile into their graveyard, and if you do, you bounce a creature or return it to their owner's hand. So this is a 3/2 version of Separatist Void Mage, which, if anyone played Magic Origins in Draft, you know that card is very strong.
Yeah. Yeah, this is the 3... It's hard to underestimate just how much of a difference 3/2 is versus 2/2 when you're playing this in turn 4. This trades for so much more than Void Mage did. Well, then
Yeah.
Void Mage would in this set, I guess.
Yes.
And yeah, it's just a very good effect here. You're just removing one of the creatures from the battlefield, putting it in your hand, and also putting a 3/2 on the battlefield.
Yeah.
So if you go Mist Intruder, get some cards exiled, start laying down your Merc Striders, it's gonna be very hard for your opponent to recover from that, especially if you can start bouncing creatures and get in with your Merc Striders.
And suddenly every turn they're just spending all their mana to cast the same creature that they've already casted before. This is a common. I guess Separatist was also a common.
Yeah.
You're going to want as many copies of this as you can run in your deck, provided you have the setups like Intruder and Benthic Infiltrator.
So these should go before Mist Intruder and Benthic Infiltrator. If you see a couple of the ingest cards, you can see no processors, somebody's probably drafting your processors.
Yes. Draft the processors before the ingest cards. That is the correct order. You don't want to be like, well, I could get a processor, but I need to set up for it. Set up for it in the game, not in the draft. In the draft, the way you set up for processors is by drafting the goddamn processors. Because someone out there is going to be drafting the processors. I guess you could hate draft all the ingesters and then both of you would lose the draft. I guess that's something you could do if you don't like someone and you know that they love processors.
Yeah.
I wouldn't recommend that for winning, though.
Yes. We are pros. We're focused on this is a very spiky podcast.
Yes. We should actually mention this right now. Sorry, we're going to take a break from the blue set review. If you open up a foil, full art land, and one of the expedition cards, pass it. It's not playable in draft or sealed. I guess in sealed, you don't have to throw it out. I guess, but in draft, you're here to win. You're not here to get a shiny $200 bill.
It's a dual land.
Yeah.
That's fine if you're in those colors or you maybe want to splash, but you can't really know that until you actually play the land.
Yeah, it's not. If pack one, pick one, definitely not first pickable. I mean, there's a reason why lands, basic lands, are usually the last thing to go in a pack.
Anyway, please pass me expeditions.
That's
the moral of the story here.
All right. Sorry for that little sidebar. This is a professional podcast. We like to keep things strictly professional. So now we are back. And our next card, also a processor.
Actually, I think I would take an expedition over, say...
Kitesail Scout?
Over maybe, if Burst Lightning was in the set, I'd probably take it over Burst Lightning.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but they didn't print Burst Lightning, so there's really no reason to take a card that's more... All right. We're starting to get into annoying territory here. Oracle of Dust. This is a 4-colorless, 1 blue. It is a 3/5 creature. It's an Eldrazi processor. It is a common. It's devoid. It has the ability tap 2 colorless mana and process a card, draw a card, and discard a card. This is a fun card. I like it. It gives you stuff. Merc, what was it called? Merc Lurker? Merc Strider. Merc Strider, it's a one-time effect. This is repeatable card draw for 2 mana, which is very, very strong. Looting to the untrained eye can seem to be maybe not a very powerful effect. Yeah, I'm drawing a card, but I have to discard a card. No, it's filtering your good cards. You're getting card quality out of it. And you're also drawing cards out of your deck, putting them in your hand. That's very nice. 2 mana for it. You need cards in exile, but like all the other processors, this is a 5-drop, meaning that you will have had turns to ingest by the time this guy comes down. 3/5, he just sits there, he blocks things. Yeah, why am I gendering this thing? It's a giant tentacle monster. Actually, this one looks very serene.
Yes, I love the art for this. It looks like it's doing yoga.
But it's also crushing.
Yes, well, there's a bunch of dead bodies around it, but yeah.
It's kind of oddly peaceful.
Yes. So, yeah, the 3/5 body will never be irrelevant. It's undercosted, but it's going to be relevant every time you play it.
Yeah.
It's not the most powerful processor ability, but it is one.
It's valuable.
It's a valuable one.
Yeah.
So
this isn't a first pick, but if you are looking for processors, this is one of them.
Yes, I wouldn't consider this one a signal.
Yeah. Yeah. Because looting is great, but it's not going to necessarily win you the game. It's just nice.
Yeah.
Next, we have Part the Water Veil. This is 4 colorless, 2 blue. This is a mythic rare sorcery. This card is the real deal. If you open this, you're probably going to pick it. The card says, take an extra turn after this one and exile this card. So you can't recur it. But take an extra turn after this one. 6 mana for that. That's limited balance. Now, what this card also has is Awaken 6 for 9. So if you're drawing this super late, that's quite nice. You get to take an extra turn. That's a really nice effect.
It's a strong effect. I think it's going to be overcosted at 6. Let's just disregard the Awaken cost here. That's never happening. It's 9 mana.
9's a little hard to get to.
Especially, triple blue, so you're not ramping up for this in a green-blue deck or anything. I don't think that taking an extra turn is worth 6 mana. So let's go over the effects of taking an extra turn. It's first you draw an extra card.
Yeah.
So you're basically discarding this, draw an extra card.
Mm-hmm.
You have an additional combat phase. So if your opponent has a bunch of tap creatures, or you have a nice big guy, then it can get in again.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's overcosted at 6.
Yeah. Would you pick this card if you saw it?
I would not first pick it. I don't think this is a first pickable card.
Let's say you're in pack 3, you're in blue, you open this card. Would you put it in your deck?
No, I'd put the Eldrazi. I'd pick Eldrazi Spawn over it.
All right.
I think that it will be money drafted before it's real spot in drafts. So you're probably never going to see this in where you should be picking it. And where you should be picking it is probably around the middle of the deck.
Yeah. Cards like this are really exciting because they say take an extra turn after this one. It harkens back to Time Walk, one of the most powerful cards ever printed, and there are going to be a lot of people angry that this card isn't Time Walk, but those people generally...
Well, Time Walk was a pretty powerful card.
Yeah, and I think having that in any format is going to make the format about casting it. So, part the Water Veil. Exciting, but ultimately disappointing, perhaps. I say play it, but again, my little insect brain loves cards that are gold or orange in the set icon area. Speaking of cards that are gold that someone with an insect brain would draft, but probably shouldn't, we have Prism Array. This is 4 colorless and a blue. It is a rare enchantment. It's got Converge. It enters the battlefield with a number of crystal counters for each color of mana you spent to cast it. Remove a crystal counter from it at any time to tap target creature, and then has the other ability, tap 1 mana of each color, or for every color, 5 total, you can scry 3. This card is... I don't even know, because to me it just looks mediocre, but I could see tapping 4 things being worth 5 mana, maybe.
So, you have to be in the Converge deck for this to work.
Of
course. This is not a playable card for 2 or even 3 colors. The 5 mana Scry 3 is a good repeatable effect.
If you can get there.
You have to have all 5 colors to do that. I don't think that's going to be realistic and limited.
Yeah, it's hard to get there.
And
There's the 3-drop elf that taps for any color. I think that's really the only way of fixing your mana.
There's some fixing green, but we're not in the green set review yet, so we have to. Yeah. This is very specific to.
We're just pretending we don't know about green cards.
This is very specific to one particular color combination.
Yeah, don't.
So 5 mana if you get this with 4 colors, and a good scenario for playing this card. It's 5 mana, tap 4 creatures, a sorcery speed.
Yeah. Yeah, this is like replacement level. It's really not powerful.
Yeah, I'm not very high on these Converge cards because I don't see. I haven't been high on one yet.
The white one wasn't bad. The white one, you put 4 dudes into play.
Yeah, that one was good.
But yeah, for the most part, really underwhelming mechanic. And when these are getting spoiled at Rare, and I'm seeing these Converge cards, here's me thinking, all right, they look bad, but the limited sets, they're balanced where the commons support the archetypes that the rares are kind of exemplary of.
Yes.
The rares show you what the archetypes are, and the commons get you there. There really was almost no support at all for Converge in the commons.
You really need to have dual lands of commons for this to work.
Yeah.
What if you're playing some some cards that aren't good on their own, in order to get the colors needed to cast Converge cards, then the Converge cards really need to be a big payoff, because you're going to be taking a lot of tempo and board state hit in order to reach that point.
Or you're letting it sit in your hand while you're waiting to get to that level where you can have all the mana.
So even if you have a board just with all 5 colors, and you're probably behind because your opponents are playing a 2-color deck, and then you play a card that lets you tap 4 creatures. That's your big payoff.
Well, 5 if you got all 5 colors. But this is... I wish I could like you, Prism Array. I really wish I could. I mean, if you do get there and you can scry 3 every turn and you haven't had your brains bashed in and you've lost the game, then you'll probably win, because scry 3 is nice.
I think scry 3 is probably much more powerful than people will give it credit for.
I mean, it's very nice. But again, we've already spent way too much time talking about this crappy card. Moving on. Retreat! To Coralhelm. This is part of the retreat cycle, of which we started in white. 2 colorless and a blue. This is an enchantment with landfall. It's uncommon. With landfall, as whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, choose one of the following effects. Effect 1. Tap or untap target creature. Effect 2. Scry 1. This is a nice card. Every time you play a land, you get a scry. Or untap something that taps to give you a good effect, or tap something of theirs that you want to attack through. So, this is fine.
This cycle of retreat cards, they all have 2 modes. This one really has 3 modes. This one has, you may tap creature, you may untap creature, or you may scry 1. And that's just versatile enough for me to say, yes, I'll play this.
Yeah.
None of the effects are good on their own.
It's still a 3-mana enchantment. You're not playing your Eldrazi Sky dude.
Yeah, you're gonna lose on board state when you play this card. But this, every single turn your lands are also spells.
Yeah, and if you can't tap something or untap something, the scry helps you find something useful.
Yeah, this is it's gonna let you claw back from the initial board state hit. I think it's just powerful enough for me to say, yes, I'll play one of these in my blue deck.
Yeah. In a processor deck, I don't know if I'd play this, because the 2-drop and 3-drop slot are so important for playing Ingesters that playing an enchantment really... And if you're playing it on turn 3, it's an enchantment that doesn't do anything until the next turn.
This wouldn't take the spot of an Ingester. I'm not sure if you ever get enough Ingesters where your 3-drop supply is just too cluttered.
Yeah.
If you do, then it's great. Don't play.
Congratulations.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. It's a playable, so play it. All right. Next we have Royal Mage's Trick. Yeah, Trick. It's 3 colorless and a blue. This is a common instant with Converge. It converges for -X/-O. It's up to 4, and you get to draw a card. So this is nice because you get to replace it. It's not nice because it's an instant that reduces something's power by 4 at best for 4 mana.
Mm-hmm. So I was one of the very few people in Origins to actually play Hydrolash.
Mm-hmm.
People didn't like it very much. I thought it was alright.
This is all creatures your opponent control. I didn't notice that. That makes it slightly better.
Yeah, so this is somewhat like some conditional fog that draws you a card. And I think that's, 4 mana, that's overcosted compared to what Hydrolash was at 3 mana.
Mm-hmm.
And Hydrolash already wasn't a great card. So you really want to be casting this for 3 different colors before you put this in your deck. Mm-hmm. This isn't a 2-color card.
Yeah.
If you do have 3-color cards, if you are going for the multicolor deck, then this is going to keep you alive to get and draw you cards. That's what you want.
Okay. So, a one of... don't pick it over anything that's better than it, which is going to be a lot of stuff.
It's going to go late in packs. It's going the last half.
Yeah, a lot of Converge cards are going late in the
Yes.
packs. Okay. Next we have Ruination Guide. It is a 2 colorless, 1 blue. This is a 3/2 Eldrazi drone. It's a uncommon card with Devoid, Ingest, and it is a Lord in the sense that other colorless creatures you control get +1/+0.
Yes, this is very, very powerful.
Yeah, this is great. All your Scions become 2/1s. Multiple copies of this card are better. It's at uncommon, so you're very unlikely to get multiple copies. It's an Ingester. It's a 3/2, so it's going to... Well, you probably aren't going to want to trade with this card because it has a persistent effect of giving things +1/+0.
But this puts a lot of pressure on your opponent when you play it.
Yeah. If you're going wide with Scions, then this is a really neat card because 2 power is, I would say, twice as much power as 1. And you want... Anytime you can get twice as much power, you want it full stop. It's a good card.
This is a card I would play with 0 other colorless creatures in my deck.
Mm-hmm.
Then once you put even 1 other, then it's now just a great card.
Yeah. And
you're gonna be playing this in the Mist Intruder deck, where now all of a sudden your Mist Intruder is a 2/2.
Yes. Oh wow. Yeah, that's great. And 3/2 is nothing to laugh at. There's plenty of ways for blue to get through with damage. They have tap downs and
there's
bounces.
some tempo support in blue.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's going to be enough for it to really be an archetype, but we'll see.
Yeah.
It's not something to be easy to predict just from looking at the spoilers.
Yeah, this card, Ingest, probably doesn't serve it very well because you're going to want to protect this to a certain degree, but it is still, I'd rather have it than not.
Yeah.
Nice card. Moving on. Russian Ice.
Rush of Ice.
Russian Ice. We've got 1 blue. This is a common sorcery. Tap target creature. It does not untap during its controller's next untap step. Hey, we were just talking about this. It's sorcery speed, though. That's fine. However, this has Awaken 3 for 5. 4 colorless and a blue. So this card, like all the other Awaken cards, it's a reasonably costed thing that you probably wouldn't normally put in your deck. A 1 mana sorcery that taps for a 1 turn plus isn't superb. However, 5 mana for a 3/3 and having that tap effect is. So congratulations, you are the Awakened player and you're going to win your draft.
So I just want to say that Russian Ice sounds like an awful mixed drink. A mix of like a White Russian with Smirnoff Ice. That's something to keep in the back of my mind. But Rush of Ice is an okay card.
Yes, I should say it is actually called Rush of Ice. It is not Russian Ice. Russian Ice is apparently a horrible cocktail you can make yourself.
Oh, man.
Or it's ice from Russia.
No, it's definitely a horrible cocktail.
Yeah, this is a playable card.
It's okay. 5 mana for... Let's just treat this as if you're always casting it for Awaken. Because unless you have, I guess we call it the Awakened Lord, the Halimar Tidecaller, this isn't something you're ever going to cast for its normal cost.
Yeah.
A 3 mana 3/3, some kind of haste because you have to have an untapped land for it. That taps a creature an opponent controls, and that creature is going to tap during its controller's next untap step. That's just okay.
I have seen and played in games where that effect has been devastating, yes. And I've seen and played in games where that effect is really just nothing. So it's kind of a flip of the coin about who you're playing against, what cards they have, what cards you have. I think this is a fine card. If you're an Awaken, you're going to want one of these. If you've got Ingesters that need to get in, this will help you get there, potentially.
If you're playing the Halimar Tidecaller,
yeah,
then you want these.
Yeah.
You want at least one of them.
Yeah. They're common. You're going to see them. These are going to be last picks. I feel like a lot of packs, they're going to get to the second half. Because if you're playing blue, you're not going to pick this over other blue cards. But you will pick it over non-blue cards. So, there you go.
Yeah.
Next up, Salvage Drone. It's 1 blue, 1/1, common. It's an Eldrazi drone. It's got Devoid. It's got Ingest. And when it dies, you get a loot. I really like this card. In the Ingest deck, getting an Ingester on the field on turn 1, there's not a lot of turn 1 answers. They're not going to play a Kitesail Scout to trade with it. They could, but you're losing your
secret sideboard tech right there.
But a lot of 1/1s for 1, they're really not playable because they don't do anything, really. They don't do enough. This card, Ingest, which is already okay. I don't know if I'd play it if it was just a 1/1 Ingest. I probably still would. But when you die, you get a loot. That means this card is... I mean, they don't want to spend removal on it, ever. You don't want to be using removal on 1/1s for 1. If it gets chump blocked, you get a draw card. So...
And then discard a card.
Yeah, you get a loot.
So, I'm not... You don't need Ingest on turn 1. The processors don't start going until turn 4 or 5.
Mm-hmm.
So, something like a Mist Intruder or the 3 mana unblockable, that's good enough. The Infiltrator. Yes, those are good enough. You don't need to start exiling cards immediately. So right now, basically you have it's a 1 mana 1/1, and those are not usually playable.
Mm-hmm.
I love me some Palace Familiars and Jeskai Sages, but this makes you discard a card too. I don't think I'd play this in an Ingest deck.
Really?
Yeah.
I think I could see this being like a one-of, just because if you get it in your opening hand, you want more cards in exile than not. And that's for sure, because you get cards like, let me just refresh my memory. You get cards like Oracle of Dust that can recur processor effects. I think having, 1 or 2 extra ingested cards is going to be nice. I think having 1 in your deck would be fine.
Well, we'll see. What I'm thinking is that Mist Intruder and the Infiltrator are going to do a good enough job of that. They're going to make more cards than you probably... Make more exile cards than you probably need. You're going to be playing some... something like Horribly Errata also exiles cards. You're going to see some more exile effects later on in this blue review. I'm just playing the 1/1 for 1 on turn 1 feels pretty bad, and if you play on turn 5, it feels really bad.
Yeah. Alright. Don't pick this card. Jacob's convinced us all. Next up, we have Scatter to the Winds. This is a 1 colorless, 2 blue. It is an instant, it is a rare, and it is a counterspell. It is an unconditional counterspell.
That's all it says, just counter target spell.
Counter target spell. If you're a blue player, if you're a blue mage, those 3 words with a period at the end are your favorite words. For 3, sure. However... it's not just a cancel reprint at rare, which would be kind of not great. It's an Awaken card. And for 6 mana, 4 blue... No. For 6 mana, 4 colorless, and 2 blue, you get to Awaken 3. So this card, unlike other Awaken cards, where you kind of want to hold on to it till you have Awaken cost, this is fine as a counterspell. If they're playing something and you don't want them to play it, use the mode of this as counterspell, and if you get to the point later in the game, you've been holding on to it, they haven't had anything you counter it, or you just drew it, and you can counter and make a creature, then that's just gravy.
It's a 2 for 1.
Yeah.
Just straight up a 2 for 1.
It is counterspell for 3, and put a 3/3 into play for 3, wrapped up in 1, and that's good.
So cancel has always been, not great and limited. It's not something that's going in for side packs. It's something that's kind of you take it late for synergy. But cancel with upside, with actually just 2 for 1 upside, is pretty good. This is something I'll take early in a pack. It's not a first pick card. It's most of the time I feel like it's just gonna be cancel. But this is a card that if I'm already in blue, I'm gonna be taking this pretty highly.
Yeah, it's not, if you open this in your first pack, you don't think, yes! You think more, darn, because I'm going to have to pick something else and someone else gets this card. Because this is a second or third pick, really. Counterspells and limited, I don't know, I don't think they're as powerful as they are in Constructed.
Definitely not.
But, again, you'll want this card, and it does have, I think it will end up being standard playable, because Dissolve was, and other 3 mana counterspells are, because they're all we have.
All
right, I gotta stop this meta stuff. Okay, next we
Who doesn't
have
love meta humor?
Spell Shrivel. This is 2 colorless and a blue. This is an instant common, and this is, I believe, the 3rd counter spell of the blue cards we've looked at. Counter target spell unless its controller pays 4 colorless. If that spell is countered, exile it. This is, so you've got Horribly Awry as your 2-drop counter spell for everything under 4 converted mana cost. This is for everything above that. They both exile the cards they counter. This is a great card. It's more splashable. This might even end up seeing standard play because countering a spell unless they pay 4 is a pretty steep price to pay. That is, even if they do pay it, they can't play whatever else they're planning on playing. This is a really nice card, and it's common. So you're going to run up against the deck that has 2 of these, and you're just going to be so frustrated because every time you try and play your bomb and they're leaving up 3 mana, they are just blowing you out with spell shrivels.
And even if you just, play your 3rd land, say go, counter whatever they play on turn 3, that's still providing fuel for your Eldrazi processes.
Yeah.
If you're in blue, you try to have some of those because they're really powerful.
Yeah, a lot of counter spells, the decision is, do I let this resolve? Do I have to counter it? Can I figure out a way to deal with it without using my counter spell? Spell Shrivel, you don't even have to think about it because, well, I mean, you should. You should definitely be thinking while you're playing Magic the Gathering.
But you don't want to be countering their Kitesail Scout.
Yeah, all right. Well, if it's on turn 5, they got 5 lands, they play Kitesail Scout, and they don't want you to exile it, then you totally... 5 minutes? All right. I'm just rambling here. Okay. This is a good card. Pick it. Play it. Don't pick it over things that are more bomby. But if you're in the Eldrazi deck, this is great. If you're in a more control-y... Is there support for like a black-blue control deck?
Oh yeah, that's the ingest processor deck, and that's going to be very powerful.
So if you are in the controlling ingest processor deck, this card is going to do work for you every time you play it. Even if it, this is an example of a counterspell. Unlike Mana Leak, this is even, I think the 4 mana makes it really strong. And yes, it costs 3, but this really, even if it gets canceled, even if they pay that cost, you're still doing so much work with just 1 spell.
I would probably go up to 2 in my deck. I wouldn't go further than that.
Mm-hmm.
Because any further than that, you're risking going to the long game where they can now pay for.
Yeah.
And this is not going to be a card that's taken early in the pack. This is a card where if you're already in the ingest deck, you can just take this late in the pack.
Mm-hmm. I think this card might actually see get picked up earlier because it is a conditional counterspell, yes, but it's splashable and countering things is nice.
It's a playable card for every blue deck, so I guess it could be going earlier than that. It's not an amazingly powerful card. It's just counterspell to exile something.
Yeah,
but it has synergy. It's playable in every single blue deck.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fine card.
All right, next we have Tide Drifter, colorless and a blue. This is an uncommon creature. It is an Eldrazi drone. It is a 0/5. It is devoid, and other colorless creatures you control get +0/+1. Like the other lord, we saw Merc. I want to keep saying Merc.
Yeah.
Merc. This is the 0/1 version instead of the 1/0 version. Also uncommon, so you're not going to run up against the Eldrazi pump deck very often. This is nice. 1 toughness might not be as threatening as 1 power, but it does give you more of a controlling option because you can block things more betterly.
This is the card that you really want to be playing against the ally deck or the landfall deck that we're going to be seeing later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we saw, what was that? The wall that was 2 for a 0/6 defender.
Yeah.
That was a 2-drop. It was going to do a lot of work. 0/5, it's not 0/6, but it's still going to block most things up until turn 4 or 5 when the big monsters start coming out.
And, if you follow this up with the, any Eldrazi Scions, those Scions now are 1/2s. It's much better than 1/1s.
Yes. And if you get both lords, now all
you
your
just
Scions are
have it made then. Yeah.
Multiple of these stack,
They do stack. I don't think I want to play... Ideally, I wouldn't play multiple of these in a deck. They're not going to be attacking, and they're going to be blanked eventually. It's still a solid card.
Yeah.
It's still a solid card.
Pick this early if you are going Eldrazi, if you're going Processor.
I think this is actually what the Awaken deck wants.
You think Awaken wants this, but
Yes.
they don't play a lot of colorless creatures.
They
Oh, the lands are colorless, aren't they?
The lands are colorless.
Not the man lands, but the Awakened lands.
The Awaken lands are colorless.
Okay. All right, I can see that. Yeah, and then protecting them from getting killed is even more important because
And
they're also your lands.
Having some Eldrazi still helps you get ramp out to Awaken cards.
Yeah.
Yeah, it helps you pay those 6 mana Awaken costs pretty easily.
Yeah, okay. I'm sold. Put this in a blue deck. If it's in a Jest deck, good. And if it's not, if it's the Awakened deck, also good. All right, moving on. Tightening Coils.
We have Doomblade now.
Yes, this is Doomblade. It is called Tightening Coils. It costs a colorless and a blue. It is an enchant creature aura. It's common. Enchanted creature gets -6/-0 and loses flying. This card says fuck you to one card your opponent controls and then does nothing else.
So if this card you really want to get rid of also has high toughness, then, well, it can still block.
Yeah.
And they're going to, every time you throw this on a creature, the next turn your opponent's going to say, okay, I block. And it's not going to do enough against the creatures that you really want to be removing.
Mm-hmm.
They're still going to be fine blockers. They're going to
well,
be
if they have a flying blocker, you get a...
It does lose flying, yes. But yeah, it's
flavorful. I think that's all it is flavorful. The art's cool. It's like a Eldrazi being pinned to a rock by a giant octopus. That
we don't see enough Kiora cards, and this is a Kiora card.
Yes, Kiora, the blue-green merfolk god stealing whatever. Yeah, Planeswalker. I think that's the right word.
Planeswalker.
Yeah, that's something I know. Don't pick this card ever. You can. It'll never perform on a level where you're excited to play it or see it in your hand or see it in a pack you open or see it on the street. It's not a good card.
Next. On the plus side, if you want to make a lot of really bad Doomblade jokes, this is the perfect card for that.
Mm-hmm. Because, it stops a creature from attacking.
It's a 2-mana kill creature.
Okay. Ugin's Insight is our next card. It is 3 colorless, 2 blue. It's a rare sorcery. Scry X, where X is the highest converted mana cost among permanents you control. You draw 3 cards. Wow, 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 wow.
I really like this card.
This card is great. This is going to see standard play. This might even see play in older formats, even though it costs 5. No, it's sorcery. It costs 5. No one will ever play this in an older format.
It costs more than 3. Never seen played in Modern.
Yes. Take that, Modern players.
Ooh.
This is amazing and limited. It's amazing and standard, I think, too. Scrying... Well, I'm going to stop talking about standard because I'm going to make myself look stupid. In limited, though, scrying for 3, we talked about earlier.
Yes, scry for 3, draw 3 cards.
Scrying for 2 is fine. Scrying for 3 is better. Scrying for more than that is amazing. And then you draw 3 cards. So even if you don't like anything you see, you're still drawing 3 more cards than you saw. So turn 5, if you're playing this on turn 5, you have a 4/4 for 4 or something like that on the board. Oh, it's highest converted mana cost, so you don't even need 4/4. You just need a 4-drop into this card, scry 4, draw 3. That is so good. You are going to be in such a good position after this card resolves that your opponent is going to feel the heat, the pressure of dealing with a blue mage who has draw card spells.
So something to keep in mind with these X cards is what's the lowest X can be before I think this is a bad card. And for this card, I think that X is 2, this is still a good card.
X is 0, I would still play it.
I would still play it, but you're playing a Sorcery Seed, Jason's Ingenuity, and that's not great.
Right.
X is 2, I think this is a very good card.
Yeah.
And then after 2, you're probably playing this for 3, sometimes even 4. That's still great. That's great.
And, if you top deck this late in the game, well, there's not many situations which you have like a 8-drop Eldrazi that's huge, that's winning you the game already. But if you do, and they tightening coils it so it can't attack anymore, you can still get value out of it by using Ugin's Insight.
If your Ulamog is just not quite good enough to win the game on its own, you can Ugin's Insight, Scry 10, and then draw 3 cards.
Yeah. Yep. Pick this card early, play it. Moving on.
Got it.
Ulamog's Reclaimer, some would say. 4 colorless, 1 blue. This is a 2/5. It is an uncommon. It is a creature. It is an Eldrazi processor. It is devoid. When it enters the battlefield, you can process a card, and if you do, you get to bring an instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. Good.
This is great. This is one of the best processors that you can have.
Mm-hmm.
I will first pick this.
Yeah. Something that you want to know, if you're playing a sorcery or an instant, chances are the reason you played it is because it was useful. Playing it again will make it more useful. 2/5, not threatening. 5 toughness, though. These processors seem like they're there to just kind of sit and block and control. This is what this one does.
By the way, in blue, a lot of the sorceries and instants also have Awaken.
Oh, that's true. This is another Tide Caller at that point. You're getting back an instant or sorcery. You might have used it for its fair cost, and now you're awakening it. Congratulations. You win. Although, that's kind of mixing archetypes with Awaken and Ingest, but I think it's limited, so
it's going to happen. It's going to happen.
All right. We're into the W's with Wave Wing Elemental.
2 W's.
Yeah. Well, don't spoil it for them. 5 colorless, 1 blue. This is a 3/4 elemental. It's common. It's got flying and landfall. That whenever you play a land, it gets 2/2 and +2/+2 until end of turn. So it's 6 for a 3/4 flying. On your turns, if you hit land number 7, it's a 5/6 flying, which is good, but you have to hit 7 lands for that. This is a 6 drop. It's only a 3/4 without landfall. Really unexciting card.
Yeah, so I think that once you get the 6 mana, finding more lands after that is pretty unlikely. And so the amount of times where this can actually attack as a 5/6 flying, and it's amazing when it's a 5/6 flying. Like 5/6 flying for 6 mana is great.
Mm-hmm.
But the amount of times where actually attacks for that are not going to be very much. And even if you can trigger landfall every turn, this is not going to be a blocker as for 6 mana for 3/4.
Yeah.
I don't think this card is playable.
Yeah, this is like if you are drafting mono blue and you need cards to fill up your playables. This is going to be one of them. You don't want this card. Let someone else get it because you don't want it. And you were saying in a white set review, if you see someone tap 6 mana, you are hoping to whatever deity you believe in that they're playing a Wavewing Elemental.
I tap 6 mana and play a 3/4 flying. It's like, yes!
Yeah, all right, sure. I tap 6 mana, I win. Okay, last card. In blue, Windrider Patrol. 3 colorless, 2 blue. This is a 4/3. It is a Merfolk Wizard. It is uncommon. It's got flying. And whenever it deals combat damage to a player, scry 2. What do you think?
4/3 flying for 5 is an okay rate.
Mm-hmm.
It's not great. It's okay.
Yeah.
The upside is fine.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is going to go in every blue deck that you have where you have it.
Yeah.
It's going to be something you're very excited about drafting.
Mm-hmm.
This doesn't really synergize with anything that we've seen in blue.
Nope.
This is not a synergy card.
Nope.
It's still a fine card.
Yeah, it costs double blue, which makes it less splashable. So if you are hardcore in blue, it's yours. If you're playing Converge, you probably don't want this card because you're going to be spreading out your mana sources. Mm-hmm. This card just really, it's so, just, like, it's not bad, but I can't get excited about it because it's just 5 for a 4/3 flying. That does work. That does work. You will want to play this card, and I'm sorry that I cannot pretend to care about it.
In a color where just so much synergy, where we've seen the Awaken, we've seen the with Ingesting, we've seen a couple of tempo plays. Mm-hmm. This has no synergy.
Yeah. The Scry 2, the thing is, if you're connecting with your 4/3 flyer, you're going to win because of that in a couple turns, so the Scry 2 doesn't do as much there. But, again, Scrying 2 on hit is not bad. It comes with its own evasion. This is a fine card. It's a fine card.
I want to emphasize that this will go in every single blue deck I have where I have this card.
Yeah.
This isn't not a bad card. This is a card that you want.
Yeah, you're gonna pick this in the first half of the pack. We're just grumpy about it.
Yeah.
Because it's not fancy. But there you go, pro heads. That's what our fans are called.
They've been known as pro heads for a very long time.
Very long time. That was last year's Name a Fan contest. That was blue. We took some twists and turns. The astute observer will notice there was an editing break in there somewhere. Where is it?
Oh.
You'll never find out. All right. Summary.
What do you think about blue, Colin?
Well, Jacob, I think blue is looking really interesting. I think more than white, there actually appears to be a lot more thought that goes into what you're playing. It's not just, I'll play this card because it's an ally. Yes. I think white-blue has a really cool awakening theme that would be really fun to draft around. I think the ingesting and processing is going to be really cool. It's super flavorful. In talking about Eldrazi, it's interesting. It's got a really medium power level. You're going to need finishers that come in the colorless set review we'll be doing in a little bit here. I think it's a really solid color. Magic Origins, blue was kind of one of the weaker colors. Blue does not have this problem here. There's a lot of playables. The counterspells are useful. The creatures are nice. They have really low on curve creatures like Mist Intruder and the Flying Eldrazi that drops a 1/1 when it comes into play. I like this.
Yeah, I'm a fan of blue. I think that we're going to see more of the processor ingest cards when we get to black. But black-blue processor ingest is one of my favorite archetypes in this set right now. I definitely look forward to drafting that a lot. Kind of like white, blue is split between some archetypes that don't work well together.
Mm-hmm.
You have the processor ingest deck doesn't really work with the tempo plays. You're not going to be playing some creatures that are threats early on. The Awaken cards have a little bit of some synergy, but not really great with the ingest cards. So again, when you open up a seal pool, you're going to have to divide your blue cards by half. Half the blue cards won't work together with half the other blue cards. And this is, this might be a theme going on throughout the rest of Battle for Zendikar, where it's one of the ways I just cheated for Magic Origins was organize all my seal pool by color, and the color I had the most cards was probably the best color for my seal pool, and that wasn't really a fun way to make seal pools. I think that it's going to be very difficult to make seal pools here in Battle for Zendikar because you are looking for synergy more than quantity.
Yeah, and I've done a couple mock seal pools. You have too. We're both pros. We both like to keep sharp and have a lot of information to work with. And yeah, I noticed that. I tried my origin strategy of sorting by color, and I just found, one, that all the colorless cards that have blue or white in their cost. There's no white colorless cards. I'm sorry.
This may have been fixed by the time you hear this. But.
Yes. Yeah, it's going to be difficult, but difficult does not mean bad. It means there is a higher skill ceiling, perhaps. Maybe a higher skill floor as well, though. So we'll just have to see in the upcoming pre-release and the following weeks what happens Battle for Zendikar. But right now, white looked interesting, if a little simple, and blue has looked really interesting, if a little complex. There's two creatures. Well, one's a spell with Awaken that bounce. That's kind of your removal. I'm doing air quotes, dear listener. Besides that, a couple tap-down effects and some cool creatures. So,
yes,
blue.
I like blue.
All right. We, you, us are done with another exciting episode of The Pro Show. Join us with Colin and Jacob.
Yes.
Join us next time when we will be talking about green. Yes, green. Green.
We will be talking about green next.
Green is the color that we'll talk about next. Bye!